Oh my goodness. So you have heard all about my journals and my notebooks, but now I offer a planner as well. And I have my spiral for my spiral fans. And it's just you have your vision board, and then you have important days and all that you need for a planner. And this is a 6 months planner, and it's offered also in hardcover and two different designs. So check out my new planner at lifewithfrancy.com/shop. Hello, welcome to Life with Francie podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. So, on today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Agam, and he's going to give us the perspective of mental health as a male, and I'm excited to hear how youth and adults can deal with their mental health. So let's welcome again, welcome to the show. What is life with you?
Yeah, perfect, Francie. Thank you for having me. So, just to expand upon that, so I'm a psychiatrist, board certified, and so I specialize in the mental health of young men as well as adults, children, and adolescents. And so, what that means is that I help take care of mental health, the issues that people are dealing with, depression, anxiety, ADHD, gaming addiction from both not only a medication perspective, but also a holistic self-improvement treatment perspective. And so it's my goal to have every person who I work with realize that they can level up their life. Basically, you can take the right actions, including, whether it's medication, whether it's therapy, whether it's physical health, whether it's your diet, whether it's altering your mindset, and you can level up in all of those areas to help lead the life that you want to lead.
I love that, and giving a both of the perspective, because there's always um that stigma in between therapy and meds and all of that. So can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was younger in high school, I had this routine where every day after school, I would come home and grab a plate of Oreo cookies. So not just one or two or like a handful, a literal plate. And so I would take this plate downstairs to my basement, close the blinds, turn off all the lights, shut the door, and just game. And so when I was doing this, I would do this for months, if not years, and started to feel a little bit worse about myself, didn't feel very confident going out, didn't feel very comfortable in the high school environment. It was hard for me to focus, especially what was going on in class, because all I wanted to do was go home and game.
Oh my
Then
goodness.
there was,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, there was this girl in my high school year, in my last year, who I wanted to ask out for prom, but I was too scared to. And I remember sitting there and then hearing that some other guy had asked her out. And so I remember vividly going to prom, sitting there in my oversized suit in a tie. I just learned how to tie like 3 hours ago, sitting there in this chair, looking up, watching the dance floor and watching this girl I liked dance with the guy who had asked her out. And immediately it all just kind of hit me that, holy crap, all the actions that I'd taken for the past 4 years had led to this moment because I hadn't developed social skills and confidence and charm, whatever it might be, because I had chosen to invest that time into gaming. And so when I came home, I remember having this realization that I can't continue this because then otherwise I'll be stuck. Then when I went off to college, I made the decision that no, like my college life is going to be different. I'm going to be social. I'm going to interact with people. I'm going to make lots of friends. I'm going to start dating more because like as a young 18-year-old guy with a lot of testosterone, right? Like that's what we're thinking about. And then started the whole journey of like self-improvement, learning about social skills, learning about fitness, learning about diet, learning about CBT therapy, how to fix the bad thoughts in our minds. And now kind of getting into my practice as a psychiatrist, that's what I want to do is be able to impart a lot of those wisdoms and things that I've been able to learn and benefit from.
Okay, so right now you just gave me like a huge breakthrough. I have a 14-year-old in my house right now, and all he does is video games. So as a parent, how can we motivate our kids to like look for other things besides video games? Because as an adult, you understand what all that video game addiction is doing to your brain and to your social skills, but how do you put that into a teenager that is like, no, I'm just playing video games, everything is fine?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think the first thing that comes is oftentimes when parents engage with their kids on their video game, it's at two different levels where the parent is here and the kid is here. And the parent is top down telling the kid that don't play games, they're bad for you. Do something, go outside, read a book, go study. But nobody likes being lectured to. In therapy, we know that the most important factor for change that a client will have success is the relationship between the therapist and the client. That's the most important thing. And so the same thing with when it comes to the gaming, right? Like you have to develop that close relationship where your kid feels comfortable sharing their emotional struggles, their physical struggles. Like, what does the gaming do for them? Like, does a parent even know what kind of game that the kid is playing? Do they know do they understand what's happening in there? Do they understand that the kid actually has friends in the video game that he plays with? Do they understand that the kid is actually feeling competent and confident because they're playing this game and they're leveling up this character, whereas they might not feel confident in real life, right? So understanding all these things is that first step. So what I recommend to parents is why not even start just engaging in the game with them? Like play it with them, ask them about it, like try to learn more about like their whole passion. Because then instead of you coming from top and them being here, you're at the same level. And then once your kid feels that, okay, you understand what they're coming from, then they'll be receptive to hearing more about like other things outside of gaming.
Okay, I love that. I'm one of the bonus parents, so it's just like, oh my god, you just feel like you just. But anyway, I love that. I haven't tried that one, so I'm gonna put it in a family meeting and see what that's all about. And oh, so yeah, that's great. Okay, so you finish high school, you go to school, college, and try to have a different experience. So then how that goes?
Yeah, no, it was life changing for me. For example, so one of the things that I did when I went to college was I joined a fraternity in my second semester. And so keep in mind, like this is like a nerdy kid who's just playing video games, joining a fraternity, which is a very, very different stereotype, right? And so because I did that, what that did was it allowed me to be around people who were not like me, guys who I did not like relate to, who were into sports and chasing girls and drinking, like all these kind of things, whereas I had none of those experiences. So one, I got the social skills to be able to interact with this completely different group of people and actually make friends with them, right? So I think that was one thing. And then the second thing was that it allowed, because it's that culture, it let me be around a lot more women too, whereas I was not back in high school. And so this is important because, in real life, learning how to, of course, deal with the opposite sex, how to interact with them, how to socialize, how to make women feel comfortable around you, right? How to develop good relationships with them. That's an important skill, whether it's in dating, whether it's in workplace, whether it's with family. And so that just having all that exposure really was able to change how I was. So of course, kind of became more confident as a result. So what I would recommend is, doing these things that are putting you outside of your comfort zone, putting you in the direction that you want to go, because then your self that's here will do the work to catch up to that ideal that you want to be in.
Okay, I like that. So did you went to school straight up? You knew that you wanted to be a psychiatrist, or was it a little bit a hard time making that decision?
Yeah, it was a little more gradual, right? So I knew I wanted to go into medical school. I decided that maybe in my first or second year of college, and so I did the all the work to necessary to get there. But then when I was deciding what specialty I wanted to do, I thought, what do I feel most confident about? And what do I feel the most comfortable, or rather, what do I feel more called to do? And so then as I was reflecting on my own self-improvement, self-development journey, like helping correct a lot of my mental health concerns, adjusting a lot of my own mindsets, taking the actions to get to where I wanted to go. I realized like that's the impact I wanted to have on other people. And so that's what led me into psychiatry.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, can you tell us any like advice or anything somebody suffering from depression?
Sure, yeah. Yeah. So specifically with depression, right? What we have to understand is that depression is considered a very selfish disease. And what that means is, right, when you are depressed, you're very focused on yourself. These are how I feel. I feel crappy. I'm a terrible person. I'm hopeless, right? I don't want to do anything. I have no energy. I have no motivation. Life sucks. The world is hates me, right? We get caught in this negative thought spiral, right? And it's all focused internally. In CBT therapy, we understand that thoughts, feelings, and actions are all connected. It's a cycle. So when you have those negative thoughts, it leads to negative feelings, it leads to negative actions, right? You think that you're crappy, so you feel crappy, so you lay in bed, and then you lay in bed, which makes you think that you're crappy, then you feel crappy, so you keep laying in bed, and that cycle continues. So the way to break that cycle is to do the opposite, where you might start thinking more positively, you start doing more positive actions, and you start behaving more positively. So instead of laying in bed, you might say, okay, today I'm going to make my bed. So, you take that action, then you feel better because you made your bed. And then when you make your bed, then you feel better, right? So you start having positive thoughts. Oh, like I can actually do that. And then you build up to harder and harder things from there. And so one of the best things that when I said it's a selfish disease, one of the best things I recommend is instead of focusing on yourself, focus on other people. How can you help other people? How can you help your children? How can you help your family? How can you help your community? How can you help the community of people online? Because then what you're doing is you're changing that cycle to start focusing on the needs of other people, which will make you feel better. And then your actions get better. And then your thoughts get better. And then you start reversing it.
Hmm. I never thought about it that way because I usually just journal from my depression. But taking the attention from myself to take care of somebody else, that usually, because then you have grace, you have compassion, you have understanding that you don't do for yourself, but then you can put that. Oh yeah, that was a good one. um yeah, and then anxiety, because those are like the major big ones that I see. I seen people too with bipolar, but I don't want to get into every single mental health. But like with anxiety, do you have any tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually very similar to depression, right? Think about depression being focused on the past and anxiety being focused on the future, but it's still internal. With anxiety, you're worrying, how is this going to be? How I look terrible. Like, I can't do this. I'm too nervous. I'm too anxious. This presentation is going to be miserable. Oh, those people are going to hate me when I go there. Oh, I'm going to fail this test or this work project. One, again, you're focused on yourself. Two, and then you're focused on the future. So, I mean, you can definitely the similar thing, right, of helping others. But the important thing with anxiety is that the best therapy for it is called exposure therapy,
Okay.
right? So imagine that, like, let's say you are scared of heights and going on an escalator like terrifies you and you're always worried about it. But then let's say we take you through a protocol where we say, okay, now we're going to go on the first floor of a building and now you're going to sit there and you're going to deal with this anxiety. But then after some time, you get exposed to it and your body doesn't react the same way it used to. Then you go to the second floor and you do that. Then the third, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, et cetera, et cetera. So by giving yourself that exposure to the thing that's causing you the anxiety, you build up that tolerance to it. And then, that's how you start counteracting that.
Hmm, interesting. I like that. And then at the beginning, you mentioned a little bit of the journey. You can give a perspective on meds and then a more holistic side. Uh, what do you see like out there? I don't know how to. Let me pause.
Yeah. So the way I look at medication, right, is it's a tool. So what I tell a lot of my clients is imagine that you're stuck at the bottom of a well. Medication might be a ladder that's thrown down at you, but you still have to climb up the well,
Mm, yeah.
meaning that it's just a tool, that can be used to help get you to where you want to go. It can lessen the severity of many symptoms, and many people do need that because they feel so stuck or they're trapped or they do have significant conditions like bipolar disorder, autism, schizophrenia, these kind of things, right? But it's just a tool. So just like if somebody has diabetes, we might give them insulin to help with their blood sugars and keep it under control. But the true treatment is losing weight and getting more exercise and fixing your diet, all of those things. And then as those things improve, as your overall health improves, then we can start stepping down on the dose of the insulin until one day you might not even need it anymore because you've corrected all the other things. But you needed it there because your blood sugars were so high.
Yeah.
Exact same thing with psychiatric meds.
Okay. I love that. And what are some holistics way to take care of it? If you like, for me, I chose the path of going more holistic way, and from my perspective as a patient, it's like super hard because like you have to do it all on your own when you can take that help. But I was very stubborn to get that help, and then I just got addicted to the self development cycle where I'm like, oh, okay, I got this tool and I got that tool, but to break it down better, what will be a system, therapy, what other ways to help a patient?
For sure. Right. So imagine you have a wheel, right? And that wheel has all these spokes that are coming out. And so for the wheel to function properly, each one of those spokes has to be perfectly in line, right? Because that's what gives the wheel that circle shape. If one of them wasn't in line, then like parts of the wheel would start caving in and you wouldn't be able to cycle
Yeah.
perfectly anymore. So it's the same thing with all of our health, like so our mental health, right? So on one spoke, you might have medication, another spoke, you might have therapy, another spoke, you might have a whole foods diet, Mediterranean food diet.
Mm.
Other spoke, you might have aerobic exercise. Other spoke, you might have meditation. Other spoke, you might have journaling, right? Other spoke, you might have family and friends time. Other spoke, you might have hobbies and spirituality. So you see how all of these are connected to the spoke of our whole life, right? And they all have to be in line and they all have to be in tune for that wheel to function perfectly. And so that's what you start doing. You start identifying all the different spokes that are out of alignment and start working to build them in alignment.
Mm. I love that. And I have to say, like, even with my journey, like, it wasn't until I got my professional help that I was able to get the stuff out, to some resources. So it's not like I haven't done it. Like, I just watch a video and I'm fixed. This was a whole decade of struggling and hitting the wall before I was like, okay, I need help. I can't get out of this one. And I seek for therapy and mentor in trauma related issues.
Mhm.
Is there anything that we didn't touch that you would like to tell my listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main overall wisdom that I live my life by and I try to impart people with is that think about life like you're playing a video game. When you're playing the game, you start with specific stats, right? You might have an attack stat of 10, your defense stat is 5. You might start at a certain level, like you might start off at like level 5. If you're fighting a level 20 monster in the game, you won't be able to beat it. But now let's say you go do some missions, you go get some experience points, and you level up your character. So now you are level 20, and your attack stat that was 10 before is now 50. And now suddenly you can attack that monster and beat it that you couldn't when you were at level 5.
Mm.
So it's the same thing with real life. We all have different challenges, work challenges, relationship challenges, exercise challenges, uh, children parenting challenges. And if they're too hard for us, it just means that we're not at the skill level yet to be able to address that challenge. But you can get there if you take the necessary steps to grind it and to get that XP to build up your stats to get to that level. So that way you can address whatever challenges in front of you.
I love that. Where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to connect with me is on social media. So I have a TikTok channel, Agam Dhawan MD, so where I share a lot of mental health insights, and like things about medications and psychiatry, diagnoses and stuff. And so that's the best place to just connect. And if you feel like you're resonating with this, you want to maybe work a little bit more closely, then you can head over to my website, www Agam Dhawan MD, AGAMDHAWAN MD.com, where we might be able to schedule a consult and then we can go through your needs and then decide what to do from there.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have one more question because I want to do it for myself on this one. You said diagnosis, and this one is more like for my personal vendetta or whatever. But no, okay, so I have a couple of years ago I did a mental health diagnosis and I had seven mental health issues. Now I believe in my heart that if I go again and do that evaluation, I don't think that it will be as extreme as it was the first time. Do you think
Mhm.
that I'm up to something in that way where some of them, not all of them, might change? through the time?
Yeah, of course, right? The thing about diagnosis you have to remember is that it's just a set of symptoms over a certain period of time. For example, to diagnose someone with major depressive disorder, we say that they're having difficulty eating and sleep, difficulty sleeping, low mood for most of the day, feeling guilty, having suicidal thoughts, like these kind of things, right? So there's a checklist of 9 different things. And if you have at least 5 of them, then you're classified as major depressive disorder. But of course, all these things change over time. So you might find that, something that you were meeting criteria for 5 years ago, you may not meet criteria for now.
Okay.
just just like if you were diagnosed with diabetes 5 years ago when you're 300 pounds and your A1C is like 8, like your sugar level. But then now 5 years ago, now let's say you're 140 pounds and your A1C is 5. So you don't meet the criteria for diabetes anymore. So you don't have that diagnosis.
Okay. Yeah, because when you say it on social media wants to like attack you and everything else. And I'm just like now thinking of my own diagnosis, um, which I said 7: major depression, major anxiety, codependency, PTSD because of trauma, ADHD symptom because of trauma, anger issues. The anger, like, pretty much is not there. Like, I'm not perfect, but it's not as aggressive as it was before. The depression, there's some days that I think that's going to be like a life journey more than anything. So I will have seasons of it. And
Hmm.
then anxiety, just the other day, I had a controlled panic attack where, like, I was in putting myself in an environment that will say, hey, you're in the danger zone. But instead, I just started walking up and down my house, and which is like giving myself movement. So I'm in a different stage of my life where I can recognize things coming at me and having the coping mechanisms and the tools to be like, oh, hold up, this is usually how I go off a spiral, so let me like bring it down. So I was just wondering if now I'm excited to go back and do the mental health evaluation again and see how that has changed from 2 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
um Now this year I started asking, what are you grateful for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I feel grateful for is we were talking about that wheel earlier. I feel grateful that um, I think most of the spokes in my wheel have been taken care of. Physical health, mental health, spiritual, family, friends, finances, relationships, all of that I feel is in very, very good alignment. And now I'm in the stage of where I'm making tweaks rather than adjusting full spokes. And so
I
I feel
love
grateful to
that.
have been there and to be able to, share what I've learned with people who would benefit from it.
Thank you. I sure appreciate that wisdom, and I'm gonna listen back to this interview because I want to make sure that my wheel too is like straight up. Because right now I got a couple of core that are going sideways, so the wheel is not turning like it's
Hmm.
supposed to. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Life with Francie podcast. Remember to follow and subscribe, and you can find my guest information in the description of this episode. Hope you have a blessed day. Bye bye.